and to say these days, even though EB is full, I understand the S.D.A's bought some land further up. Do you want to retire there? If you are retiring there, what kind of house do you want? How do you want to live? Do you want to be taking Trotsky still when you are about 70? Or you want a small car, reasonably small, not a Tico. A friend of mine says, ask for a Tico, when you get an accident, you will die because it's so small. But get a reasonable car. It doesn't have to be a luxury car. These people, they are not serious. Or you are the kind that you've set aside something. So when the doctor comes in, you say, oh, my insurance will pay for this, this, that. So you give me the test that will help you to diagnose my sickness. So that's the first one. Then I said, analyze your reality. Analyze your reality. If Brother Latte wants to expand his business and change his car, can I do the same? Are we the same? When I was young, my mom told me, always consider your back before you dance the kind of dance people are dancing. Because maybe you don't have that strong a back. But God say, ato hunke basa, isn't it? So if somebody can afford $1 million, maybe you can afford 100,000, but your 100,000 can be the best for you. So don't force yourself to be like the million, but within your 100,000, that's where you belong, and that's where you are working for. Then I said you create your plan. Remember I said this thing we are talking about is not an overnight affair. It's not you go home today and you say, oh, retirement, 100,000, okay, I've put it down, finish. It doesn't work like that. It's a continuous process. But that continuous process, you set milestones along it. So if this is what I want to be in 30 years, how much am I to put aside today? The book has a lot of examples. Assuming you are putting aside, say, 100 cedis every month for the next 30 years at, say, 10% interest, how much will that add up to in 30 years? How much will that add up to in 20 years? How much will that add up to in 10 years? Is for you to decide. Some people may say, well, I'm past the 20-year line, or I'm past 30, so between now and retirement at 60, I don't have the 30 years. It's never too late. It is indeed never too late. That's another thing I want to really drum home today, that even if you have wasted or you weren't able to do it, from today, if you start, you can get somewhere. Personally, I'm a typical example of it's never too late. I worked in merchant bank for 20-something years, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I tried microfinance. I put money well about 500,000 in the Ghana cedis in microfinance. Typical of Ghanaians, they didn't pay. As a result, I lost. In fact, I paid the last person who invested in the microfinance last 2 years, 10,000 cedis was the last person. But that said, I realized that I still didn't want to go home penniless. So I tried a second time when I left Merchant Bank, finally in 2014. This time, I took time to go and live with somebody in Kumasi who was also doing microfinance, although I was from a bank. I said maybe I was approaching it with a banking mindset. That's why it wasn't working. I stayed there for a month. I followed them from stage 1 to the last, did all that they were doing. I came back, I started. In the first 6 months, it was doing very well. So I was even calling colleagues who had issues to tell them that this is something you can work on. The daily collections is better. If somebody has to pay you 120 for a week, it's better for him to pay you 10 or 20 Ghana cedis per day. So let's do it like that. Then I sat and said, I came home with just 250,000 cedis. If I started spending from that microfinance, I wouldn't be able to accumulate it long term. So a friend invited me to where I work now on consultancy to help him. So I went. So I kept the lady I was working with and said, you take care of this while I go. Then I'll be remitting 5,000 cedis every month. By the time I finish at age 60, we would have moved it to 500,000. Then when I come in, I can pay myself something little and we can work. I left, and within 6 weeks, the business was down to zero. In fact, I gave the key to my late carpenter and told him, go to the place, bring everything out of the office downstairs. Anybody who wants should pick whatever he wanted. Hand the key to the landlord. Tell the landlord I have 5 more months to go, but I don't plan on coming there and go away. And that's how I closed that business. So till today, I don't know what happened. I don't pass there. I don't want to see the place. But that said, the person I did the consultancy with never paid me a pesewa. But he offered me the opportunity for work. So I said, please, as for me, between my front and my back, I have nothing. So I would like to work. So although I applied for a CEO position and I was interviewed, I was given head of risk. I said, don't worry, I'll still do it because I want money. I parked, those who know my white Mercedes-Benz, I parked it for 6 months and grass started growing under. Yes. So I started the work gradually like that. But as God will have it, when my boss was leaving, they advertised the position for the CEO. So I applied for it. After back and forth, and when I thought all hope was lost, I was given the position. And now, at age, that was 2019, so at age 57 is when I've started replanning. So it's never too late. Thankfully, I've been given an extension for 3 years. I'm expecting that within these 3 years, whatever I intended to do all my life, I should do it within that time. And so that's why I can tell my girl in my office that I don't have money, because I'm investing nearly everything that comes my way, because my mother is 104 years. She's still alive. So I tell myself, if the good Lord gives me life like my mother, then post-retirement, I have a long time to live. And so I have to prepare for it. So that's just by the way. So I'm saying that it's never too late. Plan yourself and look at it. I'm not here just to give you theory. Then that said, when you plan, you have to execute it. You don't just plan and say, I've planned. Like the man at the beginning said, I've put aside my plans to retire. If you do that, then there's nothing for us to talk about. Every plan we put in place, we have to discipline ourselves to go through the plan. That is the only way we can make it. Then finally, I'm saying that track your progress. So at a certain point, ask yourself, where did I say I was coming? Where am I? And what will it take for me to move from here to where am I? Need I readjust the amount of money I was putting aside? Need I readjust my spending habit? Need I readjust where I buy from? I still go to Agbogloshi, even as a CEO. I go. 2 weeks ago, I was carrying the thing on my head. Then I said, should a soldier meet me now, what would they say? Thankfully, I never met one. But I carried the things on my head to my car and brought it home. Because what I'll buy in Medina for 10 cedis, I'll get in Agbogboshi for 2. So I'd rather go there. So what are some of the rewards you get from financial planning? Some of the rewards is the ability for you to maintain and improve your living standard. I have a friend in the office. The mother stopped work very early. She says the mother's pension is not even up to 1,000 cedis. But can I tell you, that woman has built a story building from that money. The day she told me, I told her, your mother is my role model. If she can build that from the little she has and the gifts she gets here and there, I should do better. Because I get a pension way over 1,000 cedis. So we can all do something. It takes diligence, it takes planning, it takes purposefulness. And then you take away all the frivolous things. Then I said control spending allows you to live well today and even tomorrow. Can you imagine what it is when today you are driving a car and 6 years or 10 years from today, you can't even afford a lorry tie? Can you imagine? I've been there, and I can tell you it's not easy. When my car was parked and I was going to Burma camp to help my colleague with the work, one day I got to Police Church just around 5:30. I was going to pick a trotro to American House. As I stood there and looked at the cars passing home, I said to myself, Lydia, some time back, this was you. I turned back to that the bus stop, stood at the back, bowed my head, and the next thing was tears. Then I spotted a trotro opposite. So I said, this trotro must be going to American House. So I followed it until when it got to the goal, I made sure I sat in it first before they come to rush for it. So we need to plan ourselves. It's God's grace that today I can have another car. It's God's grace today I can earn a very reasonable salary, for which I thank him for. But not everybody would be like I have been. The need for us to plan. Then I said, accumulate wealth. Remember that whatever your income, you can spend it or save it. The decision is yours. The decision is actually ours at the end of the day. Do I spend it? Do I save it? Do I spend some and save some? The decision is ours. But I think the good Lord wants us to live and live happily and be able to give something even to charity as we grow. There says, hope of avoiding much of the havoc that money problems wreak to your personal life. Can you imagine when you can't buy medicine again and you are a blood pressure patient or a diabetic, when you can't afford insulin, so you go and buy the insulin by the day, or if you have to inject it twice, you go in the morning with the little money you have. In the evening, if you have some, you go for the evening jab. I don't think it's a comfortable life. If it's medication you are on, if worst case scenario you get into something like kidney problems or liver and you have to go on dialysis. I have a friend who is paying 850 Ghana cedis every 2 days to do dialysis, and he's been doing it since April. And his age, he's 75, so they say they cannot do a kidney transplant for him. Can you imagine what that would be? And this is reality. You can just take something and your kidney packs up. So what do? These are things we should be planning for. And they said conflict over money is one of the leading causes of divorce, even in this church. You can ask around. Said and done and talked and everything, it ends on money. it ends on money. It's only in a few cases where you see that there's money, but still somebody is unhappy. Oftentimes, it's because the budget is not balancing. So the slightest thing you say, the person is angry already. So those, as I said, we need to take control of our finances. That's what we've talked about. Now, if we need to take control of our finances, how do we do it? I've spoken about budget. What does a budget seek to do? What is it? How do we do it? Personal budgeting involves 3 steps. Number 1, you estimate your income, what you expect to receive in paychecks or gifts. How much do I earn? Or if you are an entrepreneur, how much is the money after you've taken the one you used to buy and the other things you spent to be able to sell? It's not that when you sell 100 CDs, all the 100 CDs is yours. No. Maybe you bought the thing 50, you added a few things, it came to say 80, then you sold it 100. So yours is 20. Now 20 on all of them is the income that has come to you. Then we are saying that what is your current and future expenditure like? Ghana today, things are tough. So for some, the paycheck to paycheck is even a challenge. But we still have to manage it. If you need to eat twice to be able to save 1 meal's money, please, eating twice will not kill you. So try. It's a very important thing for us to do. And then I'm saying, if you subtract the amount of money you estimate that you use currently versus the future, and the future, from what comes to you, the balance becomes your net cash flow, or what you can use as a form of savings, okay? Now, there are different methods people use in budgeting. And the author of the book I'm referring to gave us 5 of those. I would rush quickly through them. The first one they call the envelope method. And the envelope method doesn't need too much. Once you sit down and decide what are the main expenditure categories I have, maybe rent, food, electricity, water, some little entertainment for you, church, and a few others. So those amounts of money, you put them in an envelope or you set them aside and say this one is for our rent, this one is for paying the electricity and water, this one is for us to take transport to church, our tithe and offering is here, okay? Then it says that once you have put the money in categories, don't go and take electricity money and use for paying for rent because you've used the rent money for something else. Don't. In fact, I have a friend, she tells me for her gas, if the gas is, say, 90 cedis, anytime she goes to use it, in her estimation, is 5 cedis. So she will lift the cylinder and put a 5 cedis under, and then she will cook. So at the time the gas gets finished, when she lifts the cylinder, whatever amount is there should be able to buy her another bottle of gas. If you like, you can do that. So basically for the envelope one, after you have paid for these things, the little amount that remains on maybe the money you put aside for let's pay electricity, but electricity didn't take all, that balance, the advice is that you channel it into your savings. But you would have taken money earlier on for saving. But any excesses you have, don't go saying, this one, we must visit Papaya. Or for those who can make it, we must visit Lancaster. Or for some, Kempinski. Well, it depends. Where your basa can go, you go there. Somebody's too is chop bar. But whatever remains, the advice is that we should try and invest it. Then there's the zero-based budgeting. The accountants have a form of zero-based budgeting, but that's not what we are talking about here. Basically, what it's saying is you should start with your income, the actual one or expected. Then you allocate every single CD of that income to some purpose. Again, it's like the first one, but this time, in the previous, you keep money and say, this is going here, this is going here, this is going. It may not be everything. But in the zero base, all the money that came to you, you have to sit down and put it at where it should go. So school fees, maybe for, if you like, you can be putting money aside for paying the school fees on a monthly basis. So when the term comes, you are not taken by surprise. So tithe, school fees, feeding, light, water, transport. So he says you should allocate it like that, such that, and savings, such that at the end of the day, you are not holding any money on you. All the money is finished. When you do that, it says that your net cash flow should be zero, because we've put everything in one envelope or the other. And because you do this always, you'd be forced to be investing, putting the investment one aside. Then they also have what they were calling the 50-30-20, where you allocate 50% to your needs, 30% to your wants, and 20% to savings. I would say maybe you do 15% tithe and offering, then you can do needs, say 40%. Wants can be 5%. They are wants. They are not very important. And then savings, 10 to 15%. That's another one. Then pay yourself first. Pay yourself first is saying that move money again into savings or investment, but do that first. But for us as Christians, I'll say pay God first, then pay yourself second. So tithe and offering must go first, then whatever will go into the other forms of investment. And then you look at what will go into other non-saving expenditure, okay? So when you take God's own, and direct debit ends up being very good. Direct debit, previously we call it standing order. When that is on the money, whether you like it or not, it will be taken. So it becomes a way of disciplining you in the spending. And then after you've done that, you can be able to share the rest. Then the value-based budget goes mainly with what your values are. For some people, they don't care buying clothes when there's no food in the house. But that shows what your values are. So what are your values? Attack those ones first and spend on those. So basically, those are the 5 ways of budgeting. The author again went on to say we should always think about spending less. Always. How can I save something? Should be our mantra. But sometimes the money we have is not enough to do what we have to do. So sometimes we go into borrowing. I work in a financial institution. That's how I get paid. But I can tell you, I do not borrow. I do not. Because I just cannot fathom the interest I have to pay you. And in Ghana now, if our policy rate is 30%, it means nobody is charging you below 30%. Nobody. So for every money you take, you pay 30% on top of it. And for if the longer the period, the money you end up paying can be more than twice as much as you took if your loan is going for over 5 years. In fact, in Ghana, if it's 30%, within 2.5 years, you'd have doubled the money. The rule of 72. If you divide the interest rate you are paying into 72, that should tell you the number of years it will take you to pay double the amount you took. So as much as possible, save and use to buy. But if you must borrow, then what you are going to do with the money you've borrowed must give you much more than what you pay the bank. Assuming you are going to do something which will give you 60% return, then if you borrowed from the bank 32 and you did it, you still have 28%. I'm not saying that is wrong. It's very okay. You can go about it. But not when you borrow the money and you go and do what you want to do, and then you get 25%. Did you go or did you come? So we need to sit down and do the calculation. These days, the financial institutions are all over you. Come and borrow. We have a controller and accountant general. There are loans for you. Please think twice before you go and pick that loan. It is very, very important. When you borrow, it is a question of foregoing your benefits for the future. You are spending it today. The benefits you should have in future, you are spending it today because you are paying much more. So we need to look at it. And then we all are doing this investments and co, so we'll have a semblance of luxury. So it is very, very important for us to delay our gratification and then sacrifice many wants today for some level of luxury tomorrow. And we figure out what is really essential in life and what is not necessary. For some of us, that line is very blurred. We are not able to decipher what is important and what is not, and it worries us. So debt management, I said, try to only use debt for needs and not wants. Don't go and borrow to go and buy a shoe. Don't borrow to go and buy a phone. And don't borrow to go and buy a phone means you shouldn't go for the phone and pay it over 3 months. They've still factored in the interest. Use a YAM or use a lower version of the smartphone. It will still do WhatsApp and call for you. In fact, this phone, I hardly do half that. I don't even do 1/10 of the things. So I was telling Sarah the other day, she should hand me her phone. She said, Mommy, it's old. I said, yes, me, I need only call and WhatsApp to call you. Apart from that, I don't need anything more. So let's tone down on the expenditure. When my phone got spoiled, I was told iPhone 14 was 15,000 for the 64 gig. Why need I buy it? But I see a lot of the youngsters holding the high versions of iPhone. I see it. When I see it, I just say, well, maybe they have the money. So we should find the best interest rate and terms possible. The sooner you can pay the debt, the better. Don't wait for long. Then let's come to savings versus investment. Savings versus investment. Savings is when you have, say, a savings account and you put some money in it. Please, we have all seen in Ghana that where you put your money matters a lot. We saw it when some banks went down. We saw it when the DDEP came. Now we are on cocoa bills. Heaven knows where we are going. That one, those are some of the setbacks which can happen to your plan. It can be that the pension cannot be able to pay going forward. What will you do? That's why you don't depend on only SNIT. So if SNIT cannot pay, you can have something. So savings is when you put your money and the person says, maybe I'll give you 10% every month. And you keep accumulating, But what I have seen from where I sit, people do not save. They keep their money 3 months. Then they can, mebano ko school nti wasa me yiskano. Ya be friend me wo fie nti wasa me yiskano. Our monies are never at rest. Forget that money. Let it be there for the next 20 years. You'll be surprised at what it will become. A friend told me when Fidelity Bank opened, he put money into the flip account. He didn't know the features. So he had gone trying to withdraw the money, and he was told, no, it has to be there for 3 years. So he said, well, he was already locked in. So he started putting money. But in 3 years, when his child was going to school, that money in the flip account gave him the equivalent of £8,000 to be able to send the child to school. And he was so excited, he came to tell me. I said, wow, thanks be to God. Buy property. In Ghana, if you can get lands which would be unencumbered, is good. I bought land for 250 million cedis in 2005. Somebody encroached on the land. We were in court from 2006 till 2019. But in the end, they paid me $180,000 for the land. And even that, my lawyer had to come in. I wasn't ready to sell it to them, because they have built 4 beautiful houses on it, which I can sell one for $550,000. So why should I sell the land? So my lawyer had to come in and really talk for me to be willing to let that land go. So if it would be unencumbered, invest. When you buy land, make sure the documentation is what it has to be. That's the only thing which saved us. Because those who come for your land are vicious. In Legon, they are building day and night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They don't care. They will push you off the land and take it. So if you can, invest in those things. Buildings, land, they pay. They pay. What is investment? Investment is where the risk level is slightly higher. The risk in the sense that there's uncertainty as to whether you get what you put the money in for or you will not. So this time, you may have to even invest through a broker. That's why people will go to, say, M Fund or go to the stock exchange. Those are higher risk investments. But the return can also be good. When I said savings account, I said 10%. Cocoa bills were paying 30%. The bonds were paying 35%. So they are higher risk, but you've seen the return. But for this DDEP, they were better. So I would say have a portfolio of investment. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Some savings, some property, some in the investment. Then when all fails, you can reap some from somewhere. So I try to give this thing a pyramid which looked at the risk tolerance. For somebody who has a low risk attitude, he'll say, me, all I want to do is to put food on the table and have roof over my head. So all the investment I'm doing is just to get that. Then medium low risk will say, I want my children to have a college education. So that's what I want to do. I want to put food on the table, roof over my head. My children should have college education. And when we are talking college education, it can be very expensive. So we need to set aside some money. Then medium high risk says, I want to have food on the table, roof over my head. My children should have college education. But when I retire, I want to go to Paris and Hawaii. So you need to put a little more and get some better returns. Then the high risk attitude is, I want summer in Paris, winter in Hawaii, in addition to doing all the other things. So depending on what you want to do and where you invest, and looking at it, the savings account is the least risky. Then government or corporate bonds, which I know Ghanaians will frown at, but the treasury bills are still reasonable. Then the mutual funds, like the M Fund, the EDC, all those funds we were having, they are the mutual funds. They put money together from all of you, get a sizable amount, and then they put it into different types of a portfolio of investment. Unfortunately, when the issues happened, we realized that they put 80% in government bills and bonds. So about 80%, the fund is gone. I went to the Navy the other day to do something. They said, oh, we put some fund, but the DDP has taken all. We do expect to get that fund, and it's no small money. And for the banks, what will money do for you 30 years from now at the rates they are talking about? Those monies are gone, but it used to be better. Then large corporate stocks, companies like Unilever and Co., they say they are floating their shares if you buy and the returns come. But know that when it gets to stock, the company, after it has satisfied all its needs, decides on whether to give you a dividend or not. You may sell the shares on the stock exchange and get capital accumulation from it. Maybe if you bought it at 2 cedis and you go to sell it at 12, you would have gained 10, but the duration. So then we have small companies also. I want us to briefly look at insurance. That's my last but 2 slides. Insurance, I think I'm not the best person to talk about, but I can tell you the little bit I know about it. Basically, it is some protection you put against the things which you don't foresee, okay, the unforeseen situations. So you are looking at, say, property and casualty insurance. Assuming you are here and you get home and then you see your neighbors all around your house, the house has burnt down. What is in it for you? If you insure, you just say, oh, it doesn't matter. Tomorrow, you get to the insurers and say the event has happened. So it's necessary for us to put something in insurance, the properties. In fact, I know the S.D.As, the experts we used to have, even their pair of glasses were insured. And if you go to Techiman, the hall we had, a building bent, and the insurance money was enough to build 2 different things from it. So it's good to do that. Then we have health insurance. That one, there are a few good companies around. You can use it to pay for your medical bills if you have a good one. You can pay a premium of, say, 5,000, and for the whole year, your medicals will be taken care of. So it's good to look at that. And then even when you are older, because you've had a history with them, they'll still take you. If you are going to them after 60, they too would have done their calculations and they will tell you they are not able to take care of you. Then we also have what we call disability and life insurance, where disability insurance comes in where you are permanently incapacitated and you cannot work. Then they come in to give you something by way of your income. It protects your income. But I would say that you decide to protect what you want to protect. And also when choosing the plan, it is not the cheap one which is the best. They always have fine prints. I'm hoping that Elder Latte may spend time to explain insurance better. But if you look at third party vis-a-vis comprehensive, you may pay 10,000 cedis, but if you have an occurrence of 100,000, they will pay. Meanwhile, if you pay third party, Makoko, how much is third party? Pardon? 460. That one, when you pay, 5,000 is the limit, isn't it? 6,000, that's the limit. That's all they can do for you. So it's risk and return. So finally, all I'm saying is saving earlier creates the most option and most wealth. If you can, do it and save early. If you cannot, save as much as you can early, and then later you can build up. Track your pension. Don't just throw the money there and sleep. SNIT, for example, you need to follow to ensure that the deductions they are making from your salary is going there. I had been tracking, but when I got there to check, I had 3 months which didn't show. And I told them it doesn't matter, we should just go on since I've done the 240 months. So track it. And then I said, finally, what does retirement look like to you? Tell the full story of your retirement. When do you retire? Where will you live? Who are you with? What will you do? Think about these issues such as health, hobbies, work, travel, charity, and relationship. It's your future. Own it, control it, make it about you, make it amazing. Thank you very much.
Amen. In my previous church, when you hear a presentation like this, the next thing, if I come here, what I'll say is, "And I'm saying." Hallelujah. This is a kind of presentation that makes you, you go like this. Thank you so much, Madam Lydia Daddy. Tonight we won't have time for questions because we didn't start early. But Sabbath afternoon from 2 to 3:45, the panelists will all be here. So please note your questions. I'm sure there are many questions for Auntie Lydia. I have my own questions for her. So please note them, and Sabbath afternoon we'll discuss. Please call somebody. You can't come and enjoy this alone. Some of us are a bit older. We've been through some processes, but we are still learning a lot from this. If you hear her testimony, this is good for everyone. Please call your friends to come and listen. If they can't come, share the links with them. We'll rise and pray. My favorite elder. Brother Wahu, please come and pray with us. Close us so we prepare for tomorrow.
Jehovah God, we just want to thank you, bless you for today. We just want to thank you for even the presentation. We ask that, Lord, may you continue to bless us as we go home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Tomorrow night, we'll be discussing the business planning process. We'll go into some detail. So please make it a point to be here and come early. God bless you and have a good night.